All right there, folks. After 7 months, my Great Lakes is finally back flying, and I was able to pick it up from Battle Creek. Now, if you remember this story at Oshkosh a year ago, Great Lakes announced that there was a problem with rib cracking in the center section, and they put out a service bulletin that you cannot fly aerobatics in it. Well, service bulletin, you don't have to adhere to that. Well, yeah, if you had an accident, it wouldn't take much of an attorney to win a few cases on that one. And then the FAA finally comes out and goes, no, we don't like that at all. Let's make this an AD. So it became an AD. Now, the thing I got to give the Waco people is that they fully stood behind the aircraft and they repaired all of these no charge. And here I am going up on the very first flight, and I've learned a few lessons with the GoPro here, but okay, the airplane was, all the wings were off, it was all apart, and of course they have to re-rig it once they do that, and I'm doing the first test flight here after the aircraft has been put back together. So of course you do a very good check and make sure that at least most of the bolts are present. No, you want to have all the bolts present. That's the thing. You want to have all the bolts present. Okay, well, I'm getting ready to do my first takeoff here after the work, and notice that platinum blonde hair just flying in the breeze there. Isn't that exciting? One time I went into I think it was the auto people, and the lady asked me what color my hair used to be. Well, it was blonde. Now it's platinum blonde. But anyway, okay, I'm taking the runway here at 5 at Battle Creek. And the thing about Battle Creek is they do student training there. So that makes it kind of interesting. And we've only got really the one runway, so I'm taking off here. And you notice I've got the GPS airspeed and altitude, and it's working pretty good here. A little bit later I had a few more problems with it, but yeah, it's pretty accurate there. I climb out at 75. That's the recommended airspeed, and I'm going to come around and shoot a pattern. Now, I was having a couple of problems with the GoPro, and if you're familiar with GoPros at all, you know they have a heating problem. What basically happens is they're only made for very short duration of operation, and if you go over it was hitting me at 30 minutes or so, even though it's out in the wind stream like this, okay, there's pretty good air coming across this little sucker out there, but it would still overheat. You know, it's like a lot of the devices, the iPhones, the iPads, even my MacBook Pro here easily can overheat. But what I found is you don't really use that internal battery. You have an external power source, and they actually have a little 5-volt source there in the cockpit, you know, for running iPhones and iPads and that, which I use for my iPad when I do the cross country. So that's in the cockpit there, and I just ran a little connector from that power source up to the camera, and it worked just fine. In fact, I'm not going to bore you. Hopefully you're not bored yet, but I'm not going to bore you with the over 2 hours of flying back, although I have that on video because I like to have video at all just for the heck of it. You know, if the engine quit and I had to make a forced landing, I could have a really cool video there, I guess. But anyway, and of course, you know, this is ground speed, and the altitude depiction is pretty good there. And I'm going to come around and basically what the Waco people wanted me to do, you know, since the airplane had not been given a shakedown flight. They don't have any test pilots, I guess, anymore. I'm sure they got something set up, but you know, it's what happens to all, you know, pilots in this, or a lot of them in this regard. You know, the airlines beckon and away they go. So the good guy they had to do this is long gone, and I guess it's hard to find somebody else to do this. But anyway, they got you know, I'm sure they got new test pilots, but here I am being the quote-unquote test pilot. How unusual for me on doing this. And so I'm going to take off, and I'm going to shoot a pattern, and I'm going to come around here, but unfortunately, you know, being a student training base, they cleared a guy for takeoff. They cleared me for the touch and go, and they cleared this guy for takeoff, and he takes an excessively long amount of time on the runway, unfortunately. You should always be, you know, you don't want to rush, but you should be cognizant of the people that also want to use the runway. So Of course, I'm getting extended here for the aircraft, and then I'm cleared to come on in. And another thing I was having problem with on the GoPro is I had a little aluminum case for it that had a lens cover. I'm operating it just bare out here, so you can get bugs on the on the lens there, but they wipe off nicely. Bug doesn't appreciate it, but they get wiped off. So I'm coming around here, and it's keeping the airspeed a little bit. Now the other interesting thing about this, okay, I haven't flown this aircraft or any conventional gear tail dragger aircraft in 7 months, and we've got the crosswind limits at the demonstrated crosswind limit of 15 knots from the left. So that's always wonderful when you're getting back there. You can see the little bit of crab coming in, and as I'm coming in here, like I said, the guy takes a little extra time, so they tell me to go around left side. That's why I'm not aligned with the cement part of the runway. As you can see here, you'd expect me to be aligned with that, and I'm not. It's over to the side. So I go by the guy. When I get by him in clearance enough, they clear me to come back around for another approach there. So that's what I do. Wait till they give me clearance, and I come up. Now, as I mentioned, I had an issue with the aluminum housing there that had the little lens cap to protect the GoPro, and you could also put various filters if you wanted it. But it seemed to me that was really interfering with the GPS reception, because I was getting a lot of very strange readings that were totally inappropriate, and this looks pretty good. The altitude looks pretty good, and the airspeed looks good. Now on a subsequent flight, I didn't have the case on it, and the nice thing is I have a little clamp that goes on that little assist bar right behind my head, and that worked very well. It didn't get bumped or pushed back. I had a previous type of holder there that did move on me, unfortunately. So this one doesn't, and seemed to stay in position very nicely. And without that metal case, I seem to have pretty good information off the GPS. The only thing I did here that isn't quite as well as I like it, I didn't have it on the cinematic view. This is more of a close-in view. It's not as wide field of view, but you still get a pretty good view. And most of the people, when I said, hey, what do you want to see, what views do you like it under by the tail wheel, do you like it looking back at me, looking from the side, and mostly it was looking this view or from the side that people like the best. And of course, like I said, being a whole training situation, I'm having to go out quite a ways. I'm number third in the traffic pattern, and finally I get to the position where they will clear me back in for the landing, and there I'm starting the turn in and starting the descend to come in. And the other thing interesting, like I said, the wind was at 15 knots from the left, which is the demonstrated crosswind. Now, what demonstrated crosswind is that was the wind that the test pilot had when he went up and flew. Okay, so that's the number they put in the book. It doesn't mean it's the maximum. Sometimes it is. Sometimes they figure, when you get full control deflection, or you've got an issue with dragging a wingtip, which you can have on a low wing aircraft, because you got two wings. You got that nice high wing, which has plenty of clearance, but you still got that bottom wing, which you have to keep from scraping, and that's just not something what you want to do, because it can lead also to a ground loop, which is another thing that you don't want to do. But tail draggers have a little bit of propensity for that, and so that's something you definitely want to avoid. But the thing about this airplane, and I've got most of my tail dragger time in a Citabran Decathlon, which has much less control power. This airplane is beautifully harmonized, great control power, and that leads me to tending a little bit to over control the rudder. You don't quite see it here as much as I felt like I was over controlling, but I'm coming in for my first touch and go in 7 months here. Let's see how it goes. You can see the effects of the crosswind there, and it's gusty, of course. Yeah, not too bad. Did a wheel landing, and the wheel landing on this is you come in basically at 75, and once the main gears touch, and it's really easy with those great oleo struts to get a nice touchdown with even a little bit of sink rate that in any spring gear would throw you right back up. If I a lot of the landings I do in this airplane, if I did them in a Citabria or the Decathlon, it would bounce me up in the air so nastily that it would not be a pretty sight at all. So that's the nice thing about this. And then, of course, once you touch the main gear down, then you can take and you come forward on the stick a little bit to lift up the tail, and that helps with the forward visibility. And you just kind of basically hold that a little bit until you start running out of airspeed. Then you can let the tail come on down. But in this case, I just hold it in the level flight position and wait for the airplane just to naturally fly off. When I first started flying it, I knew the airspeeds. You bring it up, you get the stick full forward as you're going down the runway, and you lift the tail off as soon as you can, which will come up 35 knots or so, I think's the number, and then you fly off at 55. But basically, you really need to concentrate on looking forward. This is the standard tail dragger thing. You need to concentrate on keeping it going straight and maintaining the proper pitch attitude, not pushing over too much with the nose or anything, letting it accelerate, and then when the aircraft's ready, it'll nicely fly off the runway, and it works very well, especially in this aircraft. So I had my one touch and go, and it went well, and actually I must say that the airplane, I think, to me, it flies better than when it was brand new. It's very, it flies very straight, and the whole thing when you re-rig the flying and the landing wires, if you don't get it quite right, it's going to give you a little bit of turn one direction or the other, and I'm not the only guy. I have another friend of mine who picked up his Great Lakes, and he said, boy, he took off and it was perfect. So these guys have gotten really good at this, because when I flew mine, and I flew it again just today. This was a couple days ago, 2 days ago. It's Wednesday, and this was on Monday. When I flew it again today and did aerobatics for the first time in 7 months again, which was great. And I'll put together a video on that and tell you about it. But now I was able to get the airplane and head on home. And of course, you can see it in the video here. The air is rather turbulent. It was gusty. In fact, some of the gusts were up to 30 knots. Not where I had taken off from or where I was ending up, but en route. So with all of that, with the gusty winds, and this aircraft, it's an aerobatic aircraft, so it's not, it doesn't have a lot of dihedral. It's not meant to be a stable flying aircraft where it corrects itself basically for gusts. Every time it gets displaced, the wing gets pushed up or something like that, you got to put it right back down. So it's not an aircraft you can really totally trim up, because any little disturbance will put in a bank or a pitch. Mostly it's bank that you have to correct to keep on going the way you want to go. So it keeps you on the toes flying it, and there's no autopilot, of course. Why would you want an autopilot on a original biplane? If you want to fly an original biplane, you don't want an autopilot. That's for my Turbo 310R, which is also coming out of maintenance. That's been I got two airplanes, and both of them, this is a first world problem. Both airplanes were in maintenance at the same time. So for several months I joked I've got two airplanes and neither one of them is flyable. And oh, by the way, you notice the cruise airspeed about 108 miles per hour, somewhere in that realm. The I set up for a cruise, manifold pressure about 25 inches, the RPM right down at the bottom of the green at 1800, because that's going to give you your most efficient flying. And then the fuel flow is about 8 gallons an hour, or a little bit less, maybe about 7.8. And I'm setting there at about 55% power. Now, they publish figures for cruise on this airplane. And if you look at it, I'm at the way bottom end of low power in that. But I didn't get this airplane to go fast. I got it to be an enjoyable airplane to fly and to fly aerobatics. So, and the other thing is, I can cruise at 120. The buffeting is just more intense. It's noisier. It's noisy enough as it is, because I'll tell you what, noise-canceling headphones don't work in a situation like this. Not that I've been able to determine. I've talked to several of the pilots who fly this. Their noise-canceling headsets just don't work. So you got just the basic ear muffs there, and there was a mod where I could do some modification to my Dave Clarks to make them better cushions on the ears and make them a little more resistant to the noise level, a little more sound dampening. So it's okay. They're not great, but they're good enough. And so instead of blasting away at 120 miles per hour, it's a little more gentle cruise. So we've just cut out about 2 hours of cruise there around the south end of Lake Michigan, because unless you have a death wish, it's not a good idea to fly a single engine airplane, especially one that's just come out of maintenance, directly across Lake Michigan. I do that. I go straight between Lake in the Hills, 3 Charlie Kilo, and Battle Creek. I'll do it in my Turbo 310R with the 2 engines, but even at that, I'm just slightly nervous, even with 2 engines. But definitely single engine, come around the south part. And of course, there's a lot of airspace with Midway and O'Hare and DuPage and all that you got to kind of a needle in between. But with the real nice GPS navigations and the Garmin Pilot, which is what I use, I think 4Flight's a little bit better, and a lot of my friends had that. I used to have 4Flight. I transitioned back to the Garmin one and the Garmin Pilot, and I think 4Flight might have been better staying with that. But anyway, I'm with Garmin now. And of course, it allows for very good, precise navigation, because I've got my iPad there on my knee, on my left knee, a little clipboard there, and it's powered from the aircraft power, and I use that for my navigation. And it will tie into the airplane, the 660 there. For some reason, I wasn't getting it to load the flight plan, so I did it just totally off the iPad there, the Garmin Pilot, and that's not really a big deal. I'm not going fast enough that it's difficult, and I could just navigate off of that. But I'm back in the local area, coming into Lake in the Hills, and it's a long flight. I'm tired, and the one thing that's interesting here, by cruising at 55% power instead of up 65 or higher, I'm able to fly from Battle Creek around the south side of Lake Michigan without needing a fueling stop. When they delivered the airplane, the pilot flying it showed me some pictures of cruise performance. He was coming at 120, and he had to make a fuel stop. You can fly fast, and I guess it gives you a little rest break on the ground there if you want it. But I can fly it continually and not worry about having to stop for fuel, which is nice. It's the difference between burning 8 gallons an hour and 10 gallons an hour and cutting in to your reserves. And my Turbo 310R has 205 gallons. This has 28, and it's you kind of get when you fly different airplanes like that with different fuel burns, because on my 310 I burn about 28 gallons, 25 to 28 gallons. I run Lena Peak on these, and I burn about 28 gallons on my Turbo 310R, and here of course I'm burning less than 8 gallons, so it's a little big different mental gymnastics there. But of course, coming back into the pattern, and we got the same winds over the whole area. So I'm dealing with a it's gusting to 15 knots crosswind. So it's not a steady state, but in some respects the gust can almost be worse, because you kind of get the aircraft situated in the crab, and then you get displaced by the gust. So that's a item for debate, I guess you'd say. But anyway, I'm coming in over the gravel pits here with you can see it down there, the green water in those. We're just northern Illinois with the glaciers is just one big gravel pit basically. So they pull that out and they make them into kind of little recreational areas some places. Others are just filled in, but it makes for an extra little lake on the east side. I live on Crystal Lake on the west side, and that's a glacier lake from about 10,000 years ago. So I've got a very short time frame on the lake. But you can start to see the runway coming into view here, and the winds favored 9, landing, 08. The winds were out of the east, which would be the 9, but they were favoring the headwind component. Actually, it was pretty much all a crosswind component. There was just a slight, I think it was 010 was the wind component. So it was a little bit to the east there. You can see the airport down there on the left-hand side, and I'm entering the pattern here. I was monitoring on the radio. I heard where everybody was. There was one person in front of me, so yeah, I didn't go out and do the 45 entry, but my bladder was telling me it would really like me to get on the ground. So I did a downwind entry here, and flying over. Actually, before I moved to the lake, I lived in an area called Four Colonies down there, and I virtually fly over my house, but I'm usually too busy flying the pattern not to notice it very much. But anyway, coming in here now, entering downwind, and that's for those of you who know the area, that's Racco Road down there that you can see going by. And I had one other aircraft that was departing ahead of me, so I didn't fly quite as tight of the pattern as I usually do, but I wanted to give myself a little more space, of course, to have time to judge the winds on final, since they were stronger than I was used to, had been for a while, and I wanted to have time to get the aircraft all stabilized. Normally I fly a pretty tight pattern because it's just fun, and I like doing that, but once I get over South High School here, I can start my turn in, which is what I'm doing here. Yep, there's a nice profile of my nose there, and you can actually sort of see the instruments in there, which is kind of cool. The 660 and the G5, but coming around for the pattern here. And you see the airspeed's high because I'm getting a tailwind there in the pattern coming towards the runway. Actually overcompensated a little bit. You see I'm rolling out kind of just a little bit early there, so I correct back to final. And get it situated for the crosswind, which really wasn't too bad. And there we go, landing back at Lake in the Hills. And of course, on any tail dragger, you don't stop flying the aircraft until it's in the chocks. I've got the audio from the camera because basically all you hear is wind noise, but you can still hear the wind blowing. And of course, there's wind coming off the prop too. But that is the saga of my airplane being rebuilt at the factory, and they kept it over the winter months, which worked out well, because I don't fly it in the winter anyway, but we did have a number of good days where I could. So hopefully I've got it back now, and I'm going to keep it there for a while, and I'll be able to thoroughly enjoy it. My wife and I tomorrow we're going to fly down dinner to a little place at Schaumburg Airport called Pilot Pete's. It's a really nice restaurant there that you can fly into, and we've been there before. A lot of memorabilia. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it.